Good evening, Dr. Christine. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. And I'm really so very glad. I can't tell you how much I'm happy to have you as my guest for the Ikigai KaiZen podcast. And
Mhm.
for how much time we've been planning this, Dr. Christine?
Finally, the moment is here.
Yes. Well, I think over a year, maybe. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But hopefully,
Exactly.
hopefully you're
Yeah.
here. You're here. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and for being here. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Christine,
Hmm.
I know if even if I'll be presenting you the way, but my own way, but I'm not really going to convey it the way you are. But I'll do my best to present Dr. Christine Coombe, but I'll let you do it your own way afterwards. And now
Okay.
thank you so much. And I'll be introducing the concept of the podcast so that whoever is going to watch us or listen to the podcast will know exactly what we're talking about.
Hmm.
So, Dr. Christine is among, the world leaders in the TESOL field. And she's an inspiration to me and to everybody who've known her. And
Hmm.
with the little time that I've known Dr. Christine, I've been closer to Dr. Christine now, especially with the Toastmasters. But before I was just, observing what you do, getting inspired. So
Hmm.
Dr. Christine now is based in Dubai in the UAE, and you've taken the position as a TESOL president, TESOL international president, TESOL Arabia, a lot of international TESOL associations. But I'll let you,
Hmm.
Dr. Christine, introduce yourself your own way. Who is Dr. Christine?
Dr. Christine is a teacher based for more years of my life in the Gulf, most specifically the UAE, than even in my home country, the US. It's going on 33 plus years I've been based here. I finished my doctorate in 92, and a few days later I came to Oman, and I've been here ever since. So that's me. My specialty is language assessment and amongst other things. And I've slowly worked up to my academic goals when I've been here in this very supportive environment for teachers.
Thank you so much.
So that's me.
Yes, yes. I've known you actually through webinars for testing and assessment. And
Hmm.
it was a really a fascinating topic for me because, we teach, we kind of transfer knowledge to other learners, let's say, because we're learners in
Hmm.
the first place. But
Hmm.
sometimes the assessment part is the most challenging one.
Hmm.
That's what I think, because I think if we teach skills, if we teach competencies, language, content, and if we don't know how to test it for real, so
Right.
what is then for that learning experience? And it should be fair also for learners. So that's, I think, the most delicate and most, let's say, sensitive kind of. This is according to me in the field of TESOL, how to assess it that way. So if I if we'll be hearing from Dr. Christine now about assessment and in ELT and TESOL, how has it evolved over time, assessment in TESOL, and how did you learn it, Dr. Christine, in the meantime?
Well, strangely enough, in one of my graduate courses in my doctoral program, I one of the required courses was a testing course, and my advisor, Dr. Gil Jarvis, was the professor for this course, and he used a very well developed and well validated multiple choice test to test the course. And during the midterm exam, I got, for some inexplicable reason, got 100% on that test. And he pulled me aside and he said, you have, normally people don't get 100% on this test. You perhaps maybe should think about specializing in assessment because I feel you might have a knack. So with his I don't know if it was true or not, but with his encouragement, that was all I really needed to kind of find my way early on in my doctoral program, the very first semester, into what would eventually be my specialty, the area of the profession that I've written the most books in, done the most research, etc. So that was how I got into testing.
So, if I will be asking you the question, Dr. Christine, how would you define assessment and testing if beyond, the universal, the international standards, let's say, and
Well,
yeah.
the umbrella term of assessment includes both traditional types of assessment, which would be the tests and quizzes that we normally give our students. But assessment is a more inclusive term with alternative forms of more performance-based assessments, projects, portfolios, uh, performance-based, task-based teaching and testing as well. So it's very inclusive. And now, of course, in recent years, we've come a long way with regard to online forms of assessment and testing. So lots to think about.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. And especially now with AI, I think the field of, that subject of assessment will be evolving. It has
Mhm.
already evolved over time. But now, how do you think, Dr. Christine, this will have an impact, AI on assessment now, in our period?
Well, we're going to have to rethink everything for the most part. And lately, with regard to online assessment, not just AI forms, we see this resurgence of academic dishonesty and cheating in online assessments. So, in many cases, I see we are going backwards because in order to prevent students from using AI inappropriately and using other things where they engage in academic dishonesty during online exams. Many institutions, my own included, is going back to paper-based tests. And, just when I thought I had killed my last tree over the years, I find that we're going kind of a little bit backwards because of the effect or the potential effect that this could have on our assessments. I feel that, we need a little bit of time to catch up with what's happening, particularly with AI, but in a couple of years we'll have that. There'll be something else that we're going to need to work with or work on.
Yes. So if we imagine the world now with AI and the world without AI, what do you think,
Mhm.
Dr. Christine, will be the world in, let's say, in 10 years from now? Do you think we'll be still sticking to AI, or there will be kind of adjustments? So how do you see this?
Well, if I look to teaching, because I'm involved in a big grant project on what will be the classrooms of tomorrow from a teaching, learning, and assessment perspective. I think teachers will still be around. There might be different kind of mechanisms, but from all accounts and purposes, uh, teachers will still be needed because I don't think what we do in the classroom can be replicated by AI. And I think perhaps maybe, at least in my own context, um, can students teach themselves certain things? Yeah, probably 10% of our students could function without teachers and teach themselves the course content. But in terms of language, I think we're still going to need teachers. I think technology will continue to increase in our classrooms, particularly in the Gulf, where we already have a highly technological learning and teaching environment. So there'll be all kinds of new gadgets, hopefully, to make the learning process easier and to bring our students further, at least where language is concerned. But there'll still be some commonalities. There'll still be classrooms. Maybe the devices and the gadgets we use in classrooms will be a little bit more technologically advanced, but and lots of parts of our job hopefully are going to be automated. Like, I dream for the day when computers can grade a student's writing sample.
Yes.
I know we've made lots of advances in that realm, but we're still not there yet. I dream of the days that I don't have to take attendance so much that, there'll be something there that will do that for me. But I'm excited. I don't know if I'll still be around, at least in the classroom. I'm nearing, well, what's most people can, think about as retirement age, but even if I watch from the sidelines, then it'll be an interesting thing to see how my colleagues will cope with a classroom of tomorrow, 10 years down the road.
I would like to share something with you, Dr. Christine, concerning the selfless, let's say, grading thing. I've seen a video on Facebook. I'm not sure if it's a real or fake video, but I've seen some
Mhm.
colleagues in China,
Mhm.
grading, papers and exam papers using something like a scanner or whatever, just like for the TOEIC ones, just. But I think it's close. I think
Yeah.
it's not far from being possible, and it will save me in the first place because
Mhm.
I like teaching, but the most challenging part, and I think there's a lot of responsibilities this is assessment, because I'm
Mhm.
afraid I won't be conveying being fair sometimes to teachers. I'm doing my best to do that, but if it's a rubric is something really very clear, I'm safe.
That's
But
why, Yusra, that's why that when we do things like that, where we give a student a mark on a high stakes assessment, we have to make sure we build in mechanisms to make sure that, we're not having a bad day and we're completely off on our grades. So, my long work in testing has always been when you're doing anything, even objective types of scoring, there's the potential of making mistakes, but certainly with more subjective elements like speaking and writing, we need to make sure we have at least two graders, two markers on each, paper or each script. And, if there's kind of a discrepancy between those two markers, we need to bring in an arbitrator. So that we still need to make sure. And that's never popular with teachers. Teachers are always thinking, oh, isn't once enough? Well, all the research out there says no, once is not enough because, maybe we grade 19 papers and we're spot on with the rubric and with the standard. But then there's that 20th paper where we daydream or we're off the mark. So we need to make sure that we don't penalize students when those kinds of things happen. And it's only natural because we're only human.
yes, we used to do this in the public universities in Tunisia. So we used to have
Hmm.
two reviewers, two teachers. We grade our papers and then we exchange. They grade mine, for instance, and I grade theirs, and then we try to harmonize them, kind of find there is a difference, a discrepancy between the two grades. We try, for instance, to make an average out of those. So, but it's not easy if you have thousands of students.
No, that's true. Very true.
Yeah. So today, since we mentioned, assessment and testing, and part of Ikigai, which is someone's life purpose, and Kaizen, which is improvement, we would like today to see maybe or to hear a version that nobody knows about Dr. Christine Coombe. And I, myself included, I've watched all your webinars and all your podcasts and all your interviews, but I always felt, that I always wanted to know, my colleagues, my idols, and everyone that I see as an example and a role model in the TESOL field, more, from the humanistic, human point of view.
Hmm.
I've known you more, Dr. Christine, in Dubai Legends Toastmasters. I've
Hmm.
known the way you evaluate the speech, the way you empathize with the speakers, the way you deliver constructive feedback, and that mindset is
Hmm.
the mindset needed in our field, because I learn from you a lot, and you don't treat you know let's say mid-career teachers, or let's say novice teachers, the way some other teachers do. It's like you don't position yourself as someone who's being strict, and you don't have that teacher mode with colleagues. Some people, they do have
Hmm.
that with the experience, with the maturity, but
Hmm.
that mindset made you really, really special. And that's what I really think. And I'd
Hmm.
like to know more about Dr. Christine, that person, that no one knows. And a life purpose. If I ask you what maybe might be Dr. Christine's life purpose.
Well, my life purpose stems from stems from what I do and who I am as a person, not just a teacher, but a daughter, a sister. My family, it was very important to me. And, I've just lost my last living family member just 2 months ago today, in fact. So
Lost.
my life purpose has always been to facilitate their lives through helping them financially and through, the Coombe family, we're travelers. We've always been travelers through seeing the world. We don't care about buying houses or property or things like that. It was always about seeing the world. So I devoted myself to my family all these years, but I also devoted myself to my students. So I've been very happy with my life here so far. So it might sound boring, but my life purpose is to do exactly what I'm doing. But now, of course, I'll not be doing it anymore with my family. So my life's purpose now is to finding my pathway into the future, into perhaps my own retirement and what I'll do in my next chapter.
I'm sorry.
So I wish I had some other life purpose that was different now, but I'm so lucky that, God put me on the right path, because here's something you don't know about me, or maybe I've never said in an interview, is that when I was back in high school, I don't come from a family of college educated people. So I didn't really think about college, because at that time my sister was critically ill way back in high school, and all of my family's money went to her medical bills and her medical treatment. So I knew that there was not going to be any family support to help me through university. So my parents sat me down when I was about 16 and said, "We want to support you, but we can't do it financially. So if you want to go to university, you're going to have to find a way to do it yourself." And, I was really angry at the time, and, oh, this is not fair. This is not fair. But it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because I knew straight out that, I wanted to get a college education, but I didn't really know how to go about it. Now, back in the day, I was not known for being like a bookworm or a nerd or anything like that. I was an athlete. I ran track, and I was really good at running track. And I thought that maybe I would get a track scholarship to go to university. And the days and the weeks went by, and I was accepted to a university, but there was no scholarship forthcoming. So my neighbors was a recruiter for the military. So I was in conversations and discussions to sign up for the Navy, or the Air Force. I can't remember which one it was. And one afternoon, when I was just about to sign the papers to enroll or to enlist in the Army, that's a better word, he said, "Okay, look, go home, have lunch, come back this afternoon. We'll get all the paperwork taken care of." And, God was looking out for me, because I went home, the mail came. There I had a tuition waiver, a scholarship of sorts to the university that I had been accepted in to run on the track team. So my path was forged at that moment. But fast forward a year later, when I was getting my physical for the track team, I did a year, and track starts in the fall or in the spring. And I failed the physical because I had a really serious illness, and I had to have emergency surgery, which resulted in me not being able to run that first year. Luckily, my grades were pretty good, and I got a presidential scholarship that kept me in college. That and several part-time jobs throughout the years, got me and student loans as well. The American system, we can take out loans and educate ourselves. And that's how I got myself through not only a bachelor's degree, but a master's and a doctorate. And the rest, as they say, was history. My path was forged on that afternoon when I opened our mailbox and found that letter from
Yeah.
Fairmont State University.
Do you think, Dr. Christine, if, things would have been worked the way you wanted, maybe at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you've been feeling maybe about this, you've been having a different feeling right now, Or let's
Mhm.
say you're fully really grateful and you're fully really happy about the version of Dr. Christine that you are right now.
I am, yes. And I believe that even if I would have enlisted in the military, I believe that I'm in the place that I need to be in, that I was meant to be in. And however I got there, I would have gotten there eventually. So yeah, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with, myself. In terms of my job, I'd like to work a little less hard. I'd like to have kind of an easier job that I didn't teach as much, so I had more time to do research and publication and things like that, rather than spend my free time, weekends and evenings doing that. But all in all, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm sure of that. And I would have found that way eventually, whichever route I took on the way.
I'm happy to hear this, Dr. Christine.
Mhm.
And I'd like to ask you a question related to 1 year you took it off. I think it was last year you went to Singapore, as far as I can remember. Was it Singapore?
I went on a sabbatical in
But
June. The sabbatical at my institution is between 2 weeks and a month. So it's not like the semester long. So yes, yeah, that was an amazing experience. I had always thought by being in this part of the world and working at my own institution that didn't have the traditional sabbatical, that that was one of the things I was giving up, as to not being able to do that if I were in a university, let's say in the West. But when sabbatical finally became available, I applied right away and I was one of the first people to get accepted. So it was one of the highlights of my year this year, is being able to spend 2 weeks, yeah, 2 full weeks in Singapore doing my research. And it was very professionally energizing as well. So it was a big highlight of my year so far.
I was about to ask you almost the same question. What kind of takeaways you've really taken from that sabbatical? Yeah. What kind of good things maybe you can not reproduce, but just apply at your institution, maybe mentor this in teacher associations. So are there any
Mhm.
takeaways really valuable? I'm sure there are, but what are they, if you can share them
Well,
with me?
there's a lot, Singapore is very well known for their education system. And one of the takeaways I found that makes the Singapore education system so successful and so effective is the hand-in-hand relationship that the institutes of higher education have with the Ministry of Education. Very, very close working together. So I think that's the key. And I think about my own context, the UAE, and yes, there's a lot of great ministry people as well as higher education. But in fact, until very recently, I have never worked hand in hand with the ministry, being a teacher. Maybe the administrators have, but I think that would be something that I'd want to do more of, learn more of what the ministry is doing. Not only the Ministry of Higher Education, but the Ministry of Education as well.
How important do you think it is, Dr. Christine, to include all stakeholders, not necessarily, not only, let's say, the Ministry of Higher Education, but in the learning process?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the more we know that about what everybody else is doing, the better everything will be. I and two of my TESOL Arabia colleagues, we are working with a big educational system, a K through 12 school system called GEMS here in Dubai, to put on a conference for teachers in the K through 12. And it's been so enlightening to see what kinds of, the speakers that we're going to be having. And, this is over 30 years, I've never had such input with the schools literally where my students are coming from into university. So so this year has been a lot of good, different experiences for me, despite my long tenure in this country.
And if we're about, let's say, to transfer some of those takeaways, let's say, to teacher associations, so maybe TESOL Arabia, maybe TESOL International, if will be including stakeholders. For instance, you mentioned one conference, in terms of workshops maybe or educational sessions. So do you think it's valuable to have it as much multicultural, diverse, and inclusive as possible, as it is always, because it has always been that way?
Yeah, most definitely. And I right before you, a couple of hours before our meeting tonight, I spoke in the teacher education interest section webinar on mentoring. And there were like the audience, there were about 30 people, but everybody was from a different country. I mean, it was really diverse, but yet the conversations and the discussions that evolved from that session were so very interesting. So I think we need to keep doing what we're doing. And, I look at certain things that I want to do. I'm deciding whether I want to go to this big event that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But yet, one of the days, the timings fit my schedule perfectly. But yet, the other, I'll be in class. So I think I'm happy that our ELTAs are doing this kind of thing and trying to cater to different parts of the world for different time zones and things like that. But I guess it's a good thing that we can't really be available for everything. That we'll have to be able to pick and choose what we want for our development. But having a wide variety of things, focusing on important themes within education and certainly within TESOL is critically important.
How do you think this variety has benefited, maybe brought some good aspects, to the personality of Dr. Christine Coombe, let's say, personally speaking and professionally speaking?
Well, you'll remember COVID, right? When we
Yeah.
all went home, basically, and kind of like taught ourselves to teach online. And I still remember, in fact, I was sitting in the same place, trying to figure out online teaching, etc. And lots of teachers would email me and, you know, kind of looking for assistance on teaching online. And it was the first time in many years that I felt like a rank amateur. And I did know some things about online teaching because I work for the higher colleges of technology, and we already had lots of online efforts. But to completely, turn into an online teacher was a steep learning curve for me. So, and all the teachers who kind of looked to me for guidance, I wanted to say, well, I'll be sure to tell you what to do once I figure it out. So I think that whole time from that March when we went home, and then of course here we couldn't travel that summer either because it was unsure of what was happening. So I think every day, myself and many of my colleagues, we spend every day, every possible moment that we could trying to teach ourselves how to be online teachers because we really didn't know how long it was going to last or if we'd go back to the classroom at all. And I think I and lots of, for lack of a better term, my tribe, we kind of approach the situation like that and using it as to our advantage to learn different things. And one of the things I learned was that in the early days, I would sign up for anything. Okay, any PD that happened. But now I've become much more selective. But I think that the whole COVID thing really opened up online PD, and now teachers around the world are much the better for it because, now we don't have to, today I was speaking with TESOL a few hours ago, now with you based in Tunisia. Tomorrow I'll be at a board meeting with TURF, for example. So we can do so much more and it's so much easier on our systems. Now, that doesn't mean I still don't love the face-to-face conferences. Of course I do. But so many more advantages to online PD and things like that for teachers all over the world.
I absolutely agree with you. I'll tell you something. It's really personal. The COVID period of time really has opened the doors for me to the online PD. I used to attend everything here in Tunisia, with Tunisia, TESOL, and then with all the events that British Council organized here as well. And then, who did inspire me to attend the first PD and meeting was Hind Ilyas. And she
Mm-hmm.
was really posting her photos and smiling. She was an inspiration, and she was tagging TESOL International every time. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
first time that I got my international card for payment. So what I did is that I subscribed, So Hind was really an inspiration to me, and I noticed Hind's posters, and kind of tags every time to TESOL International Association. And it was the COVID, I used to teach online, and I didn't really have the opportunity to go out. And Hind was really, really, really very kind. So I joined the TESOL International Association, and I've started really subscribing to webinars. And
Mm-hmm.
step by step, the first PLN that I joined was Dr. Liz England's PLN,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
career path development. And I've seen Liz, Nizia, a lot of other colleagues. I
Mm-hmm.
had that aha moment. I had all the
Yeah.
lamps and everything. What is this world? So as if I did not attend any PD, it was very friendly. And
Mm-hmm.
starting from that moment, I became addicted to the TESOL International Association and online PD.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you so much. And I'm curious to know, Dr. Christine, let's
Mm-hmm.
say the impact of not necessarily online PD, but on PD generally speaking, on
Mm-hmm.
you, Dr. Christine, on your life. Let's say Dr. Christine with PD and conferences and research and books, in,
Mm-hmm.
in case without, let's say, standby mode or pause, detox, it's up to you to really decide with and without PD. How would be the version of Dr. Christine with and without?
With most definitely. I mean, I told you I have just recently lost my sister. And when I lost my
Sorry for
father in 2018 and my mother before that, one of the things I did was I kind of shut down for 6 months. And I could go to work, I could do stuff, but then I'd come home and I couldn't get out of the chair. I watched TV series all the time. And then I would feel ashamed of myself. And then I would say, dad wouldn't want you to be sitting around. He'd want you to be writing a book or, going to a conference. So at the at the Christmas break, I would go out and then I would say, okay, back to normal now at least. But this time I want to kind of sit around and watch TV, but I'm forcing myself to not take that 6 month lazy break. So about the only thing I haven't gotten back in the flow from this last um death of my sister is my steps. I haven't gotten my steps back, my 10,000. So I'm working on that. But for me, PD is very important and not just one kind. You know Toastmasters, right? You're familiar with what Toastmasters is. That's another thing that I've been engaged in for over 20 years. And for me, other than my doctorate, the Toastmasters development that I've gotten has been the second most valuable PD that I've ever done for myself, personally and professional development. So that and that's another thing COVID helped me with, because when I got involved in TESOL international leadership, I didn't have a lot of time for Toastmasters. So I kind of let that slide a bit. But with COVID and the idea of online clubs, I really firmly entrenched back into Toastmasters. So, COVID was awful, but for me, it served its purpose for many things. But, for me, doing research, going to conferences, both online and face to face, writing books, book chapters, articles, that's all a part of my PD. And I think it will be for the future. In fact, the book I'm currently working on is a book on professional learning and development in global context. So that's coming soon.
I'll be getting my first copy, once it's published.
That's got some interesting contributions from authors from all over the world, in
Yeah,
fact.
yeah, yes, yes. Kudos for that. And
Thank you.
I'd like to say I'm sorry for your loss, for your sister, for your dad, for your mom.
Hmm.
And I'm sure she's in a better place.
Of
And
course, yeah, of
they're
course.
very proud of you with whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
And I'd like to ask you a question, Dr. Christine. To what extent, we've mentioned the Toastmasters organization, let's say,
Mhm.
how Toastmasters was really, a source, resourceful, let's say. How was it resourceful to you as a person, as an academic, to whoever hears about Toastmasters and does not really know exactly what do we do in Toastmasters? So, how
Well, as you know, Toastmasters is an international organization that is probably best known for helping people of all walks of life develop communication skills and presentation skills. But the leadership skills as well that one can earn are also very, very valuable. And I first got involved in Toastmasters, not for my own development. In fact, when I first went to my first meetings, it was I wanted to learn what it was so that I could open up a club at my college for my students. Because, I went and I thought, oh, I have a doctorate. I'm a native speaker of English. I go to conferences and give lots of talks. What could Toastmasters possibly do for me? I was kind of arrogant. And, the Toastmasters that I went to, the meetings I went to, they also thought that I was so lucky because I had all these opportunities to give presentations. But as you know, giving a 5 to 7 minute Toastmaster speech is not the same as being in front of your students. Your students, no matter how well you communicate, they're a captive audience. They can't get up and leave. Whereas your audience, they can. So I was very surprised and I kept going. First as okay, I got to learn how the club works so I can have one for my students. But then I got elected to chair the TESOL convention in Tampa in 2006. And I knew I would have to speak in front of thousands of people as the conference chair. So that's when I got serious about what Toastmasters could do for me. And now I've just finished my second DTM, which is the kind of the PhD of Toastmasters. So, yeah, and I'm still contemplating whether I want to do a third one,
third
but
one,
I'm still
please?
going to be a Toastmaster, but I don't know if I'm going to embark on number 3. So,
I'm contemplating the DTM, even though I'm still a little baby, making little baby steps into the Toastmasters, but I'm just
mhm.
keeping that, as a smart goal, I might
That's,
start a club here.
yeah, very good. That's good. Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
I've been solicited from some of my colleagues really to do it for them. And it's the
uh-huh.
community, it's a national and international community of coaches in Tunisia. And
Okay.
also in the university where I teach now. So
Mhm.
that may be 2 clubs. And I'm
Mhm.
involved in Dubai Legends Toastmaster. So I like the experience. I'm enjoying it. And
Yeah.
as you said, being a
Mhm.
teacher does not make us necessarily a good public speaker,
Of
because
course. Yeah.
audience is different, topic is
Mhm.
different, the skills are different.
Mhm.
And now, Dr. Christine, let's say, with all the milestones that you have achieved until now,
Mhm.
um, I'd like you to imagine now in front of you
Mhm.
your younger self, the most,
Mhm.
let's say, the youngest that you can remember of yourself.
Mhm.
And can you tell that younger self now, what are the things that you're grateful to that younger self?
Mhm. Well, I am grateful that I kind of found my way into teaching without really knowing that I wanted to be a teacher. So, one of the when I first went to university after I decided not to enlist in the army, I majored in business, but I didn't really like it, but I didn't know really what to major in. And then the first year I had that surgery, and the result of that surgery meant that I could not have children. And I knew that right as I was 18. So I thought, maybe being a teacher would be one way where I would be around children because I couldn't have any of my own. And that's kind of what steered me in the way of teaching. But as you know, the higher your degree is, the older your students are. So I never really taught the little kids like I originally envisioned, but now I have the big kids, the university students. So I'm kind of even grateful for that illness that happened when it did. It didn't stop me from, completing my university studies, but it sent me on a path that,
Yes.
helped me find my way. I had a wonderful French teacher as well, who she was so sweet. I kind of wanted to emulate her, and because I was originally a French going to be a French teacher instead of an English teacher, and then I found my way into TESOL and graduated from a program that was foreign and second language education. I've kind of not, continued with French teaching and gone completely into ELT. So that was another journey that I would never have found myself, but I was lucky enough to meet people along the way who steered me in the right direction.
Mentioning
So I
the
hope I answered your question.
yeah, and grateful
Mhm.
for. So you mentioned a lot of things you're grateful for, Dr.
Yeah.
Christine. Since you
Hmm.
mentioned maybe being a French teacher was one of the things you contemplated,
Hmm.
I'm sure you know other languages, Dr. Christine, apart from English. If you can tell us what are they, and of course, if you can share at least one thing, let's say a learning outcome from Dr. Christine as a foreign language learner, Yes.
Well, I'd like to say I still can speak some French, but remember when I lived in France for a couple of years and I studied at a French university, but that was before the times of computers and the internet and even good TV basically. So I personally, I learned I picked up a lot of French other than in my classes through reading, books when I was in France. I was always a really avid reader and have been all my life. So I think that, but now it's like so easy to do, to learn languages, with Duolingo, with
Yes.
vocabulary and stuff like that. I'm also trying to learn Spanish because I love visiting Spanish speaking countries. And I started as well. One goal during the pandemic that I haven't really been able to make much traction in, and that's learning Arabic. I hired a teacher to teach me Arabic online, but he calls me a lazy student. He tries, but he said if I studied, I could I could already be speaking Arabic, but I don't know. Sometimes maybe I'm just too old to be learning Arabic. That's a
No,
bit more
no.
difficult than
You
French
have
and
the
Spanish.
no, you have the advantage of living in Arabic speaking country. So maybe you can
Mhm.
learn it communicatively, let's say, maybe in an immersive experience. But the dialect sometimes is not that easy. It's different from the standard Arabic. So maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, you should start with maybe we can launch those masters for non-native Arabic speakers.
Indeed. One of the things that I think he doesn't, my teacher's from Egypt. So, and I told him, I don't want to learn the alphabet. I just want you to teach me through transliteration so I can say stuff.
I can do
And
that.
he keeps going back to, like to the alphabet, but I'm resistant. So maybe I need to get over that and really learn the alphabet. Maybe I'll make more progress.
Well,
But yeah, so I guess it's never good to accomplish all your goals, but I'm always good at finding new goals. So I'll leave that one on my strategic plan for the moment, but I have to admit to my failures as well as my successes.
they're not failures, they're just, trials. We can
Yes, uh-huh.
try and then try again, try better, feel better, until we get things
Exactly. Yeah.
done better.
So for me, languages, it's probably some French, some Spanish, and Shwaya Arabic.
Oh, Shwaya.
Uh-huh. So
Shwaya, everything.
exactly.
So, Dr. Christie, since we mentioned countries and multiculturalism,
Mhm.
can you recall to how many countries did you travel to?
Of course, I am so proud to say that I have traveled to 149 countries in my life, including Tunisia,
Yeah.
3 times to Tunisia. So, yeah.
but I didn't really met you at that time. You're invited to come again
Yes.
and be more involved, and and you're gonna see it's different.
Mhm.
The landscape of language learning in Tunisia is really different
Mhm.
post-COVID, post now AI advancement, and
Mhm.
you'll be my guest.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Inshallah.
There's still some things on my bucket list that I'd like to see in Tunisia. So
Where
yeah,
did you go, Dr.
definitely.
Christine? If you can remember places you've been to Tunisia, did you?
Of course, Tunis. In fact, my first trip to the Arab world was when I lived in France in the late 80s, and that was to a new beach resort, it's Monastir. It was kind of an up and coming place. So Monastir, Sidi Bou Said, Carthage. But I've always wanted to go to, do you know Matmata
Yeah, of course.
in Dozor? And there's
Of
an
course.
island too I'd like to go, Djerba. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to go there as well. One day.
Inshallah, of course. Do you know that
Mhm.
Star Wars, the movie, was
Yes.
yeah, it was really shot here in Tunisia. But we'll
Hmm.
definitely, it's easy to go there. But just in case you consider
Hmm.
going back, we can prepare a whole program for that, and
Yeah,
I'll be glad
definitely.
to be your tourist guide.
Yeah. I see many places in movies and on television
Yeah.
where I say, okay, I need to find out where that was filmed so I can go visit. And of course, in Star Wars, that's where I discovered Matmata.
It was. Do you know, Dr. Christine, and allow me please to tell you this. While
Hmm.
talking to you now, I noticed that I found a lot of things you've been talking about in myself. Many of that,
Hmm.
many of that. Your
Like what?
I will tell you, your love to your family, to your
Hmm.
sister, that you mentioned something regarding PD. I've always had that tendency, to fill up my time with PD.
Hmm.
Was other things, I should have written that down, but there were a few things, Dr. Christine, you mentioned. I felt it really as if you're talking to, you know, as if I'm
Hmm.
talking to an older version of myself.
And
So,
maybe you will be, when you get older, yeah, you'll see that. And I knew the same thing with you when you originally contacted me. I didn't know you over Toastmasters yet, but the fact that you were talking about Kaizen and Ikigai, I had studied those principles as well, and I thought, oh, this is a girl after my own heart because I'm kind of into those kinds of things as well, the self-development and self-help and that kind of thing. Positivity, exactly, So yeah, I think we do share some commonalities.
Exactly. So I've noticed that, especially when your love for traveling and
Mhm.
the learning experience that everyone can have, from that traveling experience. So, Dr.
Mhm.
Christine, if I ask you now a question, since you mentioned a lot of SMART goals and
Mhm.
you mentioned a lot of, milestones to be achieved.
Yeah.
If I ask you, Dr. Christine, now a SMART goal that you consider maybe working on for,
Mhm.
let's say, the 5 years to come,
Mhm.
something really achievable, something you can achieve through small steps, like learning Arabic through small steps.
Mhm.
Do you have, like, do you envision something now to be done? Like, what is still yet to be done by Dr. Christine? Mashallah, you've achieved
Well,
a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, I think as I said before, I need to figure out what my plan of action is because my idea that after I left here, when I retired, I'd go home, be with my sister, we'd travel around, we'd have fun together, etc. But that's not possible now. So I need to figure out where my life is going to take me. Do I stay in Dubai? Do I go back home? Where I feel back home, there's really nothing for me. I've been out of the country so long that so what do I do? Do I try to look for another job? There's lots of different horizons to navigate because now, even though I think I'd be a great person to hire for any job, people will look at my age and say, oh, too old. you know, that there are places around the world that are very ageist,
Mhm.
especially the place that I'm living in here. You know, so once you get to, you know, once you're over 60, you
Mhm.
know, they expect you to retire. So I don't feel I'm going to retire, but I want to investigate lots of other things to do in the coming years. So
Um,
that's my big smart goal. I
yes.
mean, I don't know if it's going to be a 5-year thing. I hope it'll be a 5-year thing. That means I'll still be here in the place I love and the place I call my home. Um, in terms of maybe Arabic is one that I should put on my 5-year goal, and maybe I'll be able to speak Arabic in
Fluently.
the next 5 years. But you know, here it's very difficult because my students, their English is so wonderful. You know, it's hard to speak, you
Yeah.
know, other countries, for example, where the English levels aren't so good, it would have been easier to learn Arabic because you'd have to use it. But
Yes.
here, you know, you say something in Arabic and then they greet you back in English,
English.
you know, to try to help you because you sound like you can't, but it's difficult to get practice when everyone speaks English so well.
Yes, especially if the country is multicultural, it includes a lot of
Hmm.
nationalities. So English becomes kind of the first language, not the foreign language in your case. But
Hmm.
just, before the last question, Dr. Christine,
Yeah.
since we talked about the future, so I want you to imagine the future version of Dr. Christine, let's say the ideal image. Uh,
Hmm.
so taking all the good things from what you've lived, from what you've
Uh-huh.
learned, and how do you see your life, so talking about retirement is one thing, but you can still, Dr. Christine, be mentoring people. You can still have an online business. You can have a lot of things. So
Hmm.
among the things that you have mentioned, so uh, is there something that triggers, maybe your attention, or do you have other ideas? With AI, do you think of having maybe an AI automated business, Um,
Hey, why not? Why not? I mean, I'd like to keep my hand in. I'd like to mentor people. I'd like to do volunteer work.
yeah.
But, you know, to do volunteer work, you still have to have money to live on. So I would envision that the rest of my life would be mixture of those activities. And I have this one fantasy, if you will. It's kind of weird, but it's like I would really like to kit out a van in the States and live in the back of my van with my sister's 2 cats, who I'm bringing to Dubai at Christmas this year, and kind of drive around the country and see the US, all the places I haven't been able to discover. So that's another of my, you know, fantasies. So who knows what will happen. So I see a mixture of activities for me. You know, I've always wanted to do a Fulbright. I've always wanted to be a fellow with the US State Department. So I see those kinds of things in my future as well, hopefully.
Yes. So, and I've noticed, that the way you're talking about this, the feelings that you have about this, and it's the impact that it can have on your life. And
Hmm.
let's say if so, I'm sure, the future will unfold itself, step by step. But
Hmm.
with AI, just mentioning the fact of having those online courses recorded, a
Hmm.
lot of people can benefit from your expertise.
Yeah.
There are what we call, video based lessons or video based training. Uh,
Hmm.
just by the fact of sitting and recording that and having that on a platform, you can be paid for that.
Well,
Uh,
we'll have to talk more about that because that interests me a lot. So,
it is actually, and I've discovered a lot of platforms. I'm doing this for myself whenever I have
mhm,
time and
mhm,
good quality for my camera. So I just, record few things. No, now I'm doing it in forms of lessons, but I just,
mhm,
see this and I see it differently, for instance, with you and with some of my other colleagues who are much more mature than me, professionally
mhm,
speaking. So,
mhm.
we can learn a lot from you. So, and you still can be paid for that. So that's Ikigai, actually doing the things that you like and still be
Yeah.
paid for that. And you can still have your van You,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you can,
I watch these videos all the time with the content creators, recording content in their vans. So who knows?
yeah, we can have Dr. Christine, content
Hmm.
creator, and
Hmm.
all it takes, is a good, mobile phone camera, and that's it. That's it.
Hmm.
You're free.
Good.
You're free to go. So I think,
Yeah.
Dr. Christine, I think we've reached the end of our interview today, and
Mhm.
I've tried to ask, as many questions as I've really wanted to know about you, and I expected maybe my colleagues would like to know about Dr. Christine.
Mhm.
Would you like to add a comment, a piece of advice, anything, Dr. Christine, before we wrap up our episode?
Well, what I was thinking is my advice to anybody involved in anything is, as long as you're getting something out of doing something, like Toastmasters, for example, or like online PD, do it until it's no longer fun and then just don't do it. I see lots of people that I feel that the negativity comes across. They no longer like their job. They no like they stay because it's a job, but they don't like what they're doing, what they're teaching, who they're teaching, etc. So I feel that it's important to do yourself and the people that you work with a favor. And if you really don't like what you're doing, maybe don't do it for a while, or quit, do something again, and then maybe come back to it. And I think that's good advice for literally everything.
Exactly.
So,
I did this actually, Dr. Christine, and I'm going to share with you this with you. I've always had that 4 years, five max time spent, and I've changed jobs whenever I felt that I don't belong there anymore. So because
mhm,
I outgrow the place. Sometimes I'm looking for a new challenge. So it depends. So I
mhm,
agree, absolutely agree with you. If you don't feel like you're being yourself, just look for
right.
the right place, the right location, the right people that you can get along with, and where you can really bring a lot of benefits to that place. Because after all,
Mhm.
that's what stays and what lasts is the impact we have in this world. So, would you like to add anything else, Dr. Christine? So,
Mhm. No, I agree. I agree completely. I agree completely. But in terms of your generational cohort, I've been in the same job this is my 25th year, but I'm a baby boomer. So, my generation, we're loyal to our employers. We don't change jobs a lot, but I don't know how old you are, but I'm
14.
assuming
I'm 14.
you're,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm
You're
14.
okay. Well, I can't figure out what that would be, but your generation, you move jobs, more frequently
No.
to, as you say, find a new challenge, etc. So, it's all generational as well.
Yeah.
But
But now,
see, I like to have routine in my job. I
yeah.
love my job. I love what I teach, but I look for variety in what I do in my outside endeavors, my PD, my volunteer work, etc. That's how I challenge myself to find, a new path.
Yes, thank you so much for that piece of advice. And actually, just to tell you the
Hmm.
truth, finally, I found my place, my people in my new job now, and hopefully,
Good.
yes, thank you so much. And from the very first moment I joined the community, I felt that there are a lot of things to be shared, and everything is done from the heart, and that's the only
Hmm.
that being welcome,
Good.
being valued, and inshallah, all the best for everybody. And
Hmm.
this is it. So thank you so
Hmm.
much,
Good.
Dr. Christine. Thank you for your time. Thank you um, for your kindness, for everything, for sharing your story, for sharing your piece of advice. And I want this conversation to be ongoing, but I guess the time
Yeah,
is
definitely.
you, and thank you so much really for devoting time to talk to me and to whoever's going to listen to this podcast. So
Hmm. I
that's
look forward to listening as well.
inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Christine. And with this, we have reached.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Would you like to say something, Dr. Christine? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. So with this, we've reached the end of the Kaizen, Ikigai and Kaizen. They're both. I used to have them, separate podcasts. And today we
Mhm.
had a very exceptional honored guest, Dr. Christine Coombe. And please feel free to follow up with this podcast. Share it with whoever needs to watch this, because I'm sure that everybody's going to get a lot of info from what Dr. Christine has shared. And see you soon. And Dr. Christine, thank you so much, and see you in Toastmasters. Bye.
Yeah, see you then. Bye now. Bye.
Bye bye.